And we're live. Welcome back, everyone, to CapitalCosm Live. Hit that like and subscribe. Give me a 1 in the chat if you can hear the sound of my voice crystal clear. And there you have it, right there on your screen. That is former President Nicolas Maduro by way of Venezuela. And yeah, he's being perp walked, guys. They got him today. It's very odd. There doesn't seem to have been any resistance from the Venezuelan side. It was a pretty clean sweep of Venezuela. It's pretty surprising. But what we're going to cover today, we're going to cover some of these clues that we were seeing in the markets beforehand that may have been telling us insiders were kind of pricing in this event we just saw. And this was namely in the oil market. Now, if you've been following this channel for a long time, you'll notice that we've been talking about the underinvestment in oil, this seeming disconnect between the oil service providers and the price of oil. Some very odd things going on in the oil market. We've seen oil come down while some of these other oil companies, go up. So we're going to talk about some of the meaning behind that, what that could have meant for what is undoubtedly now Maduro's fate. But before we get started, nothing in this video is financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. And hit that like and subscribe, guys. If you're getting value out of these live streams, you're enjoying these live streams, it would really help me in the long run if you hit that like and subscribe. I do appreciate it. And let's go ahead and get started. We'll also cover some gold and silver today as well. So you want to stay tuned for that. And could this be the reason why gold and silver, namely silver, has been rocketing to the moon the last couple of months? Were insiders piling in? Did smart money know? I mean, this is effectively China's exit from South America, or the start of it. A couple weeks ago, we saw Chile fall under the influence of the U.S. with the successful election of that U.S. friendly candidate over there. Now we've got Maduro out. So it looks like it's falling into play. And we also have Trump now talking about, and the administration talking about going after, he said the leader of, he also alluded to Mexico as well, that they need to take care of their drug issues too. So that's pretty much an implicit threat that they're most likely next. So, but anyways, be that as it may, let's go ahead and dive right into the markets. And this is the price of oil. Okay, guys, the price of oil since 2022 has been getting clobbered, for lack of a better term. Now, what's interesting, and we looked at this the other day, if you look at the oil service companies, so I'm going to actually zoom this in on a 1-year chart. 1 year, oil has been in the dirt. Now, of course, one of the ramifications behind a U.S.-controlled Venezuela is we would effectively gain control of their oil fields, in which case they have the largest oil fields in the world. So this would create a headwind for the price of oil, effectively bringing the price of oil down south of whatever it is today. Today, it's $57. But what's interesting is if you look at a chart of oil services, it's actually been going up. If you look at ExxonMobil, Exxon has actually been breaking out into new all-time highs, which is really odd. Why is Exxon, I can zoom out as well, show you guys. I mean, it's a clear breakout. Exxon is breaking out to new all-time highs. This is a chart that goes back to the 70s. You also see similar patterns in Chevron. Chevron will be one of the main beneficiaries of this as well. That's also been breaking out. And effectively, what's going on here, what's happened here, guys, is all these guys knew this move was coming. So the insiders all piled into Exxon, into Chevron, into the oil service companies. When you look at the price of oil, however, didn't quite make sense. So I knew there was something going on. Whenever there's a disconnect in the market like that, you've got to put your thinking cap on. So this is going to be good for, the likes of Exxon and Chevron, I believe. Also oil service companies. There's a lot of rusted old infrastructure over there in Venezuela. Sure, they've got tons of oil underneath the ground over there, but it's a real pain in the ass, as far as I understand, to pull all that oil out. So it's not going to be like turning on a water faucet and getting access to all that oil instantaneously. It could take multiple years, actually. And I actually prompted Grok on this. So I asked Grok, given that Maduro has just been ousted and that the U.S. will be running Venezuela from now, how long would it take to get Venezuela's oil online and on the market? So Grok said, based on recent developments, blah, 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 Venezuela's oil is already online in a limited capacity. Current production hovers around 900,000 to 1.1 million barrels per day, down from over 3 million barrels per day 15 to 20 years ago. Feels like a million years ago, doesn't it? Due to decades of mismanagement, underinvestment, infrastructure decay, and sanctions. However, ramping up to meaningful increases in output and exports will depend on stabilizing operations, repairing facilities, attracting skilled labor, and securing billions in capital. Here's a breakdown of estimated timelines based on expert analyses, historical precedents, and projections. So in the short term, so this is within the 6-month window, so this is what Grok anticipates happening. And then in the immediate aftermath, production could see quick boosts if the transitional authority under U.S. guidance secures control of state-owned PDVSA, resumes imports of dilutants. And these are needed to process heavy crude, and that's the oil that exists in Venezuela. It's heavy crude. So there's heavy crude and there's light sour. In Venezuela, they produce heavy crude. For example, in our refiners here in the United States, we have light crude refiners. So we can't refine their oil here in the United States. It would have to be refined in Venezuela and then shipped and sold elsewhere. And addresses basic maintenance on existing wells, pipelines, and upgraders. Analysts project an addition of 200 to 500,000 barrels per day within the first 1 to 6 months, potentially restoring output to pre-ouster levels by mid-2026 if sabotage or resistance from loyalists is minimal. And that's the other thing. They just got Maduro. That's it. The army and the government there is still pretty much intact. Now, granted, it appears like we may have seen a case similar to Syria back in late 2024, around this time last year, in December of 2024, where you basically had demoralization across the military and the government, and they all basically stood down, and then there was nothing Bashar al-Assad could do at that point, and then he fled. This could have been another case of rot from the top all the way back down to the bottom, where they just, the deep state operatives within Venezuela. And another interesting tidbit is that Venezuela was visited by China 24 hours before this whole debacle. So that's very interesting. And as far as we know, the Chinese delegation was still there at the time of the abduction. So one of two things may have happened here. Either China was in on it. There's a special deal cut between, or a secret deal cut between the U.S. and China, a grand bargain, if you will, where the United States gets Venezuela and maybe China gets Taiwan. Guess we'll have to wait and see. Or this was just a big power move on the part of Trump and the United States to show a show of force to the Chinese delegation while they were present in Venezuela. Now, you'll recall in 2017, he did something similar when Beijing was visiting Mar-a-Lago in 2017. He bombed a Syrian airbase. And so it could be another case of that. But let me know what you guys think. There really wasn't much fight from, much, if any at all, fight from Russia or China. And I think some people, not everyone, some people may have anticipated, maybe some resistance from the Russians or the Chinese, or no, there really wasn't. There's pretty much a clean sweep surrender, and off Maduro went. So I'm interested in getting your thoughts here, guys. Drop me your theories. Do you think that this was a coordinated deal between China and America? Are we witnessing a grand bargain where everyone kind of gets on sides, if you will, There's the Monroe Doctrine here for the United States. We're probably going to take Greenland too. I mean, if we took Venezuela, we're probably going to take Greenland somehow, some way, by the end of the year, most likely. Canada as well, to some degree. We may get like certain provinces of Canada. There's all of these separatist movements beginning to percolate in Canada, in Manitoba, and in the middle portions of Canada, which are very more energy centric and tend to be much more conservative and aligned with more so the American side than Canadian governments, in Ottawa and in Vancouver and so forth. So that's another thing to watch out for. But it seems like it may be the case that we are seeing regionalization, deglobalization is turning into regionalization. Will we see China take Taiwan? I don't know. But let's go ahead and finish up this analysis from Grok before we get off to too much of a tangent here. Factors accelerating this: U.S. companies like Chevron, Exxon, and Shell are poised to return quickly, with the White House signaling that firms must invest in repairs to reclaim seized assets from past nationalizations. Elections could occur within 6 months, paving the way for contracts. So you've got that Machado lady. She's the most likely person to come in and replace Maduro. And interestingly enough, she won the Nobel Peace Prize. I don't know what she did exactly to win the Nobel Peace Prize, but she won the Nobel Peace Prize this past year. So the fix was in, essentially, one way or the other, whether China was in on it, whether Russia was in on it, whether they just kind of whether they reluctantly accepted the scenario, who knows? But it seems like the insiders were in on it. They were buying Exxon. They were buying Chevron, as we just saw here in the charts, while the oil price was coming down. No sane analyst would take that bet. But, we've been scratching our heads for the last few months now trying to figure out, why is OIH moving? Why are the oil companies moving while the price of oil is down? Where there you go. The writing was essentially on the wall. So here are the risks: political instability, worker strikes, or external interference, either from Russia or Iran, could delay this phase by weeks or months, keeping exports below 1 million barrels per day. So here's another question I have for you guys. What about the remnants of the Maduro government? I mean, they're still there. They didn't take out like any military. I mean, they blew up like some area. They took out like 40 people or so died. 40 Venezuelans died in the process, but the government is still largely intact, and I'm sure he has his loyalists still there somehow. So it definitely wouldn't be out of the realm of possibilities that you would still see some pockets of resistance within Venezuela. So we would still have to deal with that. And Trump did call for regime change in I believe it was either in a Fox News interview or in his press conference earlier today. Not just regime change, but nation building, I should say. Nation building. So that really doesn't offer much optimism, because we saw what happened when we tried to nation build Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, all these other places. We tend to get bogged down in these places. But, well, hey, guess we'll have to wait and see, right? Medium term, 1 to 2 years, significant ramp up with sanctions fully lifted and $10 to $20 billion in initial investment. Production could reach 2 million barrels per day within 12 to 24 months. So that's a doubling of what we see today from Venezuela at 1 million barrels per day. This is within 1 to 2 years. This involves reactivating shut-in capacity in the Orinoco Belt, Venezuela's key heavy oil region, drilling new wells, and enhancing recovery techniques. Wood Mackenzie estimates $15 to $20 billion could add 500,000 barrels a day alone from joint ventures in this time frame, and under favorable conditions like reliable power and workforce return. This would flood the market with additional heavy sour crude outside OPEC quotas, potentially lowering global prices by late 2026. U.S. Gulf Coast refiners like Valero and Chevron stand to benefit most from improved feedstock access. And yeah, Chevron is breaking out. We haven't looked at Valero. I'm sure they're breaking out as well. Exxon's breaking out. Challenges in this include infrastructure is badly broken, requiring overhauls of refineries, ports, and pipelines, described as a lengthy process, not impacting 2026 oil market significantly. So this is interesting. I guess we'll have to see where the market opens tomorrow. If there's a steep sell-off in oil, could be an opportunity to buy in some of these oil stocks at a discount. I don't know. I guess we'll see. But I anticipate many people are thinking that this may be a quick and easy turning of the faucet, if you will. But according to Grok, it's not so easy. And this is assuming that there isn't any friction aside from the bad infrastructure, but that there isn't any friction from, again, resistance forces potentially forming in Venezuela and all that other stuff. Venezuela is a jungle. It's not a desert like Iraq was. It's a much more harder terrain to really rein in the control. So this is on a long-term view, 3 to 10 plus years. Returning to historical peaks of 3+ million barrels a day could take 5 to 10 years or more, needing 30 to 50 billion dollars in sustained investments for new drilling, modernization, and debt restructuring of PDVSA. Some analysts warn it might span decades given the extent of the damage. Worse than post-war Iraq, which took 8 years to recover pre-invasion levels, or Libya, still 32% below 2010 output after 2011 regime change. So there you go. Here's your two latest examples. They're your two latest use cases. So I think a lot of these people celebrating that we're going to get all this oil from Venezuela, I think we're going to be waiting a while for those dividends to pay off. Optimistic views hinge on U.S.-led efficiency and political stability. Pessimistic ones cite workforce exodus, deferred maintenance as barriers, blah, blah, blah. And so overall, while initial exports could hit markets within months, a substantial flood of Venezuelan oil enough to meaningfully affect global supply won't occur overnight. Experts emphasize that a capacity recovery, not just reserves, the world's largest at 300 million barrels, is the bottleneck. U.S. involvement may speed things up compared to historical cases, but real-world precedents suggest caution against overhyping turnarounds. So there you have it. Oil bears, energy bears, there's the counterpoint to that. So I think we might see a sell-off in oil. I mean, I don't know. Maybe everyone's reading the same analysis that I am. Maybe we have to see a spike in oil. Who knows? But if there is a sell-off in oil, I think it's because it's being mispriced for the reasons that Grok just debunked here. So just an FYI, guys. Here are the charts again. Chevron breaking new highs. Valero, we haven't looked at that. Let's go ahead and look at Valero, see what that's doing. Boom, breaking new highs as well. So these guys all knew. I mean, the fix was in. All these insiders, they all knew this was coming. You see it in all these oil stocks rallying where they had no business rallying, given the price of oil was in the dirt effectively. But here's another interesting part that I need you guys to think about as well, and that is Saudi Arabia, Russia, OPEC. They pretty much run on a certain threshold of oil price. You know, if it gets below $50 a barrel, I mean, Saudi Arabia becomes, you know, they get hit in the process. Russia gets hit in the process. They're actually they're probably going to cut down on production as a means to price control the price of oil, because they do not want $40 oil, $30 oil. The entire premise of Russia, or the entire premise of the Russian economy, is that it's people like to call it a gas station, a big gas station in a country, but it really does hinge on the oil market over there. And so there's kind of like this, I think I may have this up and ready somewhere around here, but I think one of the guys, one of these Russian accounts here, one of these Russian accounts may have talked about how this may have been a misstep on the part of Russia to not aid in Venezuela's protection and securing Venezuela's output of oil, because now the U.S. can just flood the oil, supposedly, was what they're thinking. But, we just looked at the data here. It's going to take a lot longer. Maybe probably why Russia didn't bother to really help at all. It's because they didn't really see it as a meaningful impact to their economic model. But what if I were to tell you that there's someone who called all this to a T? He's dead now, but he's called the Russian Nostradamus. And you may have seen this guy. His name is Vladimir Zhirinovsky. I think he passed away a couple of years ago. And he pretty much called what's happening today. I want you guys to listen in on this. Check this out. So there you go. He pretty much called what's happening in Venezuela today. There's another video too. This is one's a compilation of all of his, predictions. Yeah, this is not. I'm reading the comments, guys. This is not pre-recorded. We're doing this live. I can read the comments. So, oh, no audio. They're saying no audio. Well, we don't need the audio. We just need to read what he's saying. Hold on. Hold on. Maybe I can stop screen. What if give me 1 second, guys. Some of you guys want the audio, so I'll try to get that for you. Okay. Let's try this now. All right, let me know if you can hear it.
Some dub the eccentric Russian politician Vladimir Zhirinovsky Russia's Nostradamus. Well, here are just a small snippet of his predictions.
Я бы хотел, чтобы 22-й год был бы годом мирным, но я люблю правду. 75 лет говорю правду. Это будет год не мирный. Это будет год, когда, наконец, Россия станет снова великой страной. Не надо бряцать оружием. Надо сказать, давайте выполнять. Отказывайтесь, тогда мы можем принять другую программу. А какую вы почувствуете? 4 часа утра, 22 февраля.
He was just 2 days off. These special military operations started February 24th.
Вы для них проходная площадка. Вы для них пушечное мясо. Никогда они вас никуда не примут. И НАТО лопнет.
He read NATO like a book.
И вот здесь-то они не понимают, что раз они угрожают нам, чтобы потом угрожать Китаю, Китай вынужден с нами быть ближе. Да и нам неплохо иметь верного союзника. Когда поймут американцы, что Россию не разгромить, Китай не разгромить, тогда, может быть, начнется действительно перезагрузка.
He saw the bromance between Russia and China growing under Western pressure long before any analysts had the same feelings.
Вот будет смешно, если в следующие выборы пойдет Трамп и выиграет.
Выиграет. В следующем 2024 году выиграет Трамп.
Я думаю.
И мы могли бы помочь ему.
Yeah, you heard that right. He foresaw Trump coming back in 2024.
Они, как говорится, уничтожат Венесуэлу и поставить своего проамериканского, они же в Бразилии поставили, творят, что хотят. Дикость, они в наглую заявляют, что это их подбрюшье.
Talk about geopolitical shifts. Looks like another spot-on prediction. Now in 2026, it's going to be Zhirinovsky's 80th birthday, and Russians are ready for the celebrations, even though he passed away in April of 2022. But who exactly is Zhirinovsky besides being Russia's Nostradamus? Well, if you're Russian or have a vague sense of the world around you, you'll probably know that he was the leader of LDPR for decades and a 6-time presidential candidate. Oh, and by the way, his unhinged and unpredictable behavior, many also dubbed him
Well, I think
Russia's.
that's it for the predictions, but you guys get the idea. Yeah, so this guy basically called what was going to happen in Ukraine. He called the special military operation within 2 days. Pretty good accuracy there. And then he pretty much called a series of events that's transpired just today. Just what we saw earlier this morning with the invasion of Venezuela and the kidnapping of Maduro. It seems like all this was fairly predictable. And all it really takes is some common sense and just thinking about it from a game theoretical point of view. And so I would think in this case that Cuba is definitely next. Trump hinted at it. Trump mentioned Cuba. He mentioned Colombia. He mentioned Mexico. I think those countries are next on the chopping block. Greenland is probably next. Canada, in some capacity, will also be. Maybe he saves Canada for last or something like that. But there does seem to be a consolidation of the Western Hemisphere. Are you guys seeing ads? There shouldn't be any ads. I don't monetize the live stream, so there shouldn't be any ads. Yeah, that's weird. Yeah, it doesn't sound like anyone else is seeing it. It's one person got an ad for some reason. Yeah, there should be no ads. But yeah, Cuba is probably next. I would watch my back if I was who's the leader of Cuba again? I don't even know. But he probably won't be there for long. But yeah. I was looking at this one list of countries who did not have a Rothschild central bank. Venezuela was one of them. Syria was one of them. Both those countries have been neutralized in the past year or so. All that's really left is Cuba, Iran, and North Korea, I believe. I think those are the only holdouts left. So they're probably, North Korea has nukes, so they're probably a little harder to deal with. But yeah, this basically tells us that if you don't have any nukes, well, it is what it is. International law doesn't mean jack squat. Human rights law doesn't mean anything. It's really the only reality that exists in geopolitics is the law of the jungle. That's it. I don't like it. I don't approve of it, but that's just the reality. Might makes right. And, I get the moral grandstanding about all this stuff, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really mean anything. So if you've got the resources to protect your land, then that's the best thing you could do. If you don't, then you'll be taken over by the empire. So this is a post regarding oil supply. Could see another 3 million barrels of oil hit the market per day. So he says, are you freaking kidding me? I'm not the type who likes to criticize or pick fights, but I seriously can't hold back on this one. Do you even know what Venezuela's historical peak production was before talking that kind of nonsense? This is what happens when tourists with zero expertise in the commodity space try to front run the headlines. Yeah, this is exactly what we just talked about. We just debunked this with Grok. For example, look at the oil patches in the U.S. and Canada. There are world-class assets. Everything working well, guys? StreamYard is being weird with me. Hold on. Audio and everything coming in clear? Okay, never mind. For example, look at the oil patches in the U.S. and Canada. There are world-class assets with the best infrastructure, labor, and capital flow on the planet. Go out there just once and see for yourself how oil is actually discovered, drilled, and transported. Even in these top-tier jurisdictions, things don't move that fast. And yet you think infrastructure and networks that have been rotted for decades under investment, neglect, and corruption can just be restored overnight? first of all, you need massive capital, given the risks and the fact that oil prices are low. You need some kind of exemption from nationalization or potential sanctions. Remember yesterday I had to lisp with sanctions. Just to go get Western banks and majors to look at it. Even if you have the funds to take it takes physical time. It will happen eventually, but unless God himself descends, it's not happening anytime fast. So that's another thing. You've got to have the incentive. You've got to incentivize all these banks to be able to lend out money for these projects. And $57 a barrel now. You bring all this stuff online, it's going to drop like a bad habit in the process. So, yeah, I mean, if these things are going to come online, they've got to be incentivized at probably a much higher oil price. This is actually a pretty good point. Yeah, this is just another one of these posts on X. Venezuela holds the world's largest proven oil reserves, about 20%, about 7x the U.S. U.S. sanctions have helped keep oil output around 700,000 barrels per day versus 3 million capacity. U.S. was so, yeah, Venezuela actually has the world's biggest oil reserves, 19.4% of global reserves, followed by Saudi Arabia at 17.1%, followed by Iran at 13.3%, Iraq at 9.3%, UAE 7.2%, Kuwait 6.5%, Russia at 5.1%. Assuming that's Libya, 3.1%, in the U.S., 2.9%. So gaining Venezuela is a big acquisition. But again, the problem lies in extracting that oil, given the rotted infrastructure, the amount of capital that it takes. It's not going to be easy. But of course, I mean, the government could just print money, right? I mean, do they really need banks to get approval for? I guess that's one way they could get around the funding issue. 50 billion. So Grok mentioned like 30 or 50 billion dollars in consistent investment. Is that, I'm not sure what they meant by that. Like that's a yearly type of thing, or under what tempo or frequency? This is from Trump earlier today. This is from Fox News. So he says we're going to be strongly involved in the oil in Venezuela. Let's listen in to what he said.
The countries that negotiate with Venezuela for that illegal oil are already starting to suffer. What do you see as the future of Venezuela's oil industry?
Well, I see that we're going to be very strongly involved in it. That's all. I mean, what can I say? We have the greatest oil companies in the world, the biggest, the greatest, and we're going to be very much involved in it. We can't do something like this, and we're prepared.
Yeah, so they're going for the oil, but again, we'll see how easy it is to get access to it. So this is a chart of gold, and of course, gold new. Is this why gold and silver have been rallying? Are we going to see more of this stuff? Is this just the start? It is the start of 2026, but is this the start of one regime change after another? Or are you about to see the rest of South America fall one domino after the next? And I tweeted here, gold is a conspiracy theorist. That's conspiracy theorist. That's always right. And guys, if you don't follow me on X, check me out at CapitalCosm. I haven't really been posting much on X the past year or so, but the last couple of weeks I've been ratcheting up the volume. I'm going to be a bit more active on X. So let's try and get let's try to get 10,000 followers by the end of the year. I'm currently at 4,600, and I'm tracking well below my YouTube subs. So if you guys want to help me in that number, follow me on X. And of course, if you're enjoying this video, hit that like, hit that subscribe. It does help in pushing this video in the algorithm, especially while it's live. Also hit that bell notification. I have been doing more live streams lately. So hit that bell notification so that it notifies you whenever I'm going live, so you don't miss a live stream. And a quick note from our sponsors, or our partners in this case, from the Bullion Standard Pro. Become a Bullion Standard Pro member and get access to wholesale or near wholesale pricing on your gold and silver. So if you're in the market, if you're looking to add into your stack right now, and look, I mean, we're entering unknown, uncharted territory. I don't know what's going to happen. The only constant in the world is gold and silver, and then taxes. So if you want to add into your stack, become a Bullion Standard Pro member. It's super easy. You pay $35 a month. It's essentially the Sam's Club Costco business model. So you pay $35 a month in subscription fees, and then you get access to gold and silver at near or at wholesale pricing. So all of these markups you see at other places that are well above the spot price, the pro price here just mitigates all that, just eliminates all, if not most of that. So for example, Silver Eagles, those currently go for $86 on average retail prices on most of these other dealerships. You can get it here for $77.96. And if you buy one of them, that saves you $8.19. If you buy 20 of them, that saves you $162. If you buy 100 of them, that's savings of $801. And of course, you've got all these other products as well. 10-ounce bars. Buying with the pro membership saves you $90 on one 10-ounce bar. That effectively pays for multiple months of membership. Like, there's really no hidden, there's no catch to this. It really is just a slam dunk deal. It basically pays for itself. So if you want to take advantage of that and support the channel simultaneously, click on the special link in the description box below and use promo code COSM10 at checkout. All the instructions on how to do that are in the description box below. Use promo code COSM10 at checkout to get 10% off your first month. So take advantage of the savings. And let's get back into the action here. This is from, this is in regards to Lula da Silva, the president of Brazil. Now, Brazil could be next on the chopping block. So it says here, Lula da Silva, president of Brazil, about the U.S.'s kidnapping of Venezuela's president. The bombing on Venezuelan territory and the capture of its president cross an unacceptable line. This is what he said. The action is reminiscent of the worst moments of interference in Latin America and Caribbean politics and threatens the preservation of the region as a zone of peace. So he's kind of in that left-wing axis in South America that President Trump is deposing right now. He's making his way across all. I mean, they already have Argentina. They already have El Salvador. They have Chile. They have Venezuela now. Brazil is the crown jewel of South America. So I anticipate they're probably leaving Brazil for the end. Okay, so this is from the Kobayashi letter on Twitter. So the last 12 hours have been absolutely insane. So this is a recounting of events. So, and what happened in Venezuela. So Chinese officials arrive at 10:30 p.m. Eastern time in Venezuela to meet with President Maduro. At 1:15 a.m., unexpected airstrikes in Venezuela begin. At 2:40 a.m., President Trump confirms he has ordered strikes. At 4:20 a.m., LOL 420, President Trump says the U.S. has captured President Maduro and his wife. So within 6 hours of the Chinese delegation being there, like, all this stuff has transpired. President Trump and his wife are indicted in the Southern District of New York. So this is, so I've interviewed Martin Armstrong many times before. As you guys know, he's dealt with the Southern District of New York. And according to him, that's the most corrupt district in all the United States. It's basically a kangaroo court. So, I mean, Maduro's pretty much toast. And you got to ask yourself the question, why is Trump sending Maduro out to the Southern District of New York? Because they're looking for, to get this guy in jail. They're not looking for a fair trial. There's not going to be a fair investigation on, who's really smuggling the drugs into the narcotics and so forth. So, and remember, the Southern District of New York was the one that Trump had a $500 million bail in 2023, I want to say, or just right before the elections in 2024, maybe. Remember that? That was the Southern District of New York. That was the Letitia James district. So it's all connected, guys. They're all in on it. President Maduro has now been charged and is on U.S. soil. Yeah, so this is how it's worked. It's interesting that, again, I want to get your thoughts. Is China in on this, or was this a power play by Trump in front of the Chinese delegation, much like what he did with Syria in 2017? Let me know your thoughts. Again, this is the perp walk. What's also interesting is that he's like changed his clothes multiple times in all these different pictures we see of him. I wonder why that is. I'm seeing Blue Water. You're saying that China flew out a third of Venezuela's silver reserves, 300 tons. Interesting. Do you have a source for that? Post the source in the link, if you don't mind. I can read it on air. That's an interesting find. Okay. So this is a clip from Glenn Deason's show with Jeffrey Sachs. How long is the clip? Yeah, we'll see what he has to say here. So he's basically saying it's a blatantly illegal act, part of a long line of blatantly illegal American actions. We'll watch a small clip of it. We won't watch all of it.
Well, clearly this is a blatantly illegal act, but it's one in a long line of blatantly illegal American actions.
Yeah, legality doesn't matter anymore, guys. I mean, that's all window dressing. That's all to kind of gain the acceptance of the masses who they need to, for the sake of the stability of the system. But if you can get away with it, do it. That's the ideology that runs the world. Legality and illegality, that doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things.
And just in the recent days, Trump has been threatening a new country every day. He bombed Nigeria last week. He said that the U.S. would intervene in Iran if the government acts against.
Yeah, so this goes against what we've heard from the national security document that was released a month ago, which was basically a retreat of America's interventionism. But it looks like it's actually ratcheting up. So it kind of makes you wonder, was that national security document a psyop to get all these other countries to lower their guards or something? Because he's not following it.
It's the protesters in a way that Trump doesn't like. He has invaded Venezuela. Just recently, he created a special envoy for Greenland, declaring that Greenland will be ours. So it's a threat against Europe, which, of course, Europe doesn't even acknowledge or recognize because it's so passive relative to the United States. We are not in a constitutional order.
Yeah, they're definitely preparing for something big. You could tell there's a sense of urgency to lock down the Western Hemisphere. And Trump did say that it was for national security purposes in regards to Greenland. We've got to get Greenland for national security purposes. So there's all these theories online. I spend a lot of time I'm chronically online. I spent a lot of time on the internet. And there's all these theories out there about a geophysical event, or they're just prepping for World War III with China, and they need to be sure that their own fortress is stable. So I don't know, but there's definitely something to it. I can definitely see that they're prepping for something cataclysmic coming down the pike. I don't know when it is. I don't know what it is exactly, but the elites all know. And they're scrambling to get all their ducks in a row, which kind of begs the question: why were they sitting on their hands up until today, up until this past year? Because it seems like an oh snap moment. It's like, oh, like how like you were in high school back in the day, you'd have like or in college, and you'd forget you'd had like an exam just on the day of, and you just like cram as much information as possible. It's kind of what it is. Kind of like there's just scrambling to put 50 pounds of you know what in a 10-pound bag. So it's very rushed, very sloppy, but there does appear to be something happening behind the scenes.
In the United States, we are in an order led by a military state. We do not obey the U.S. Constitution. Everything is by executive decree. When a congressman dared to mention the U.S. Constitution today, Trump said, "What is he whining about? This is ridiculous."
Yeah, so Trump doesn't care anymore, guys. He just does not give a you know what. And the reason why I'm pausing and adding commentary into this video, because if I let it play for too long, YouTube, I believe, might copyright strike it, or because it is from Glenn's YouTube channel. So I'm not going to let it play. I'm going to interject my thoughts as we watch the clip.
Well, this is really at least what Trump has done is expose the fact that we're at the end of constitutional rule in the United States. What happens when there's a thuggish rule remains to be seen. But in my view, this makes the world extraordinarily dangerous. Of course, we're hardly at the end of the story about Venezuela itself. They have arrested a president, but this is not the end of anything. The whole history of U.S. regime change operations, which number probably around 100 such operations.
Yeah, it's not a good portfolio. The regime change exercises that we've done over the years, they haven't really panned out the way we wanted them to. So, yeah, I think I pretty much get the gist of what Professor Sachs here has to say. Let's see. What else? Okay, so this is from Martin Armstrong, and it's a clip from Zelensky. Zelensky has no standing to lecture Washington on how to treat Putin when he himself is an unelected wartime profiteer kept in power only by martial law, censorship, and neocon money. Let's see what Zelensky has to say.
Про Венесуелу? Ну, як тут відреагувати? Ну, що я можу сказати? Якщо можна, да, так, з диктаторами, ось так, то Сполучені Штати Америки знають, що їм робити далі.
Never a wasted opportunity with Zelensky. I mean, anytime he sees an opening, he goes for it. So he's kind of giving a wink and a nod to Trump to, we also have another one of these dictators, just like Maduro, but he's even worse. His name is Putin. Maybe you want to take care of him the same way. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Why do you think China and Russia have been pretty much absent from all of these allied nations falling? You had Syria last year. You had Venezuela this year. They didn't come to the aid of Iran, although they are now, although Russia is supplying Iran with fighter jets today, but they kind of play both sides. I mean, they still have good relations with Israel too. Russia does. So, I don't know. I think in some way, the Russia and China alliance and the BRICS thing it's all an alliance of convenience. Because when the going gets tough, they just don't do anything. They don't stand as one unit. And yeah, so there's that. So here's another video of Maduro being perp walked. Again, he changed his clothes again. Why is he changing his clothes? All right, some silver news regarding Venezuela. Potential increase in oil production would put downward pressure on oil prices. Lower oil prices would reduce input costs, improve corporate profitability, and ease inflationary pressures. With inflation cooling, the Fed would gain room to implement the rate cuts Trump is pushing for, providing a stimulus to the broader look, they're going to do the rate cuts, whether or not we have $60 oil, $50 oil, $1 oil, $100 oil. Rate cuts are coming no matter what, is my opinion. Not financial advice. But no sound? Can you guys not hear me? Can you guys? Oh, there's no Russian clip. Oh, all right. So it looks like we're still good. So yeah, I mean, they don't need any excuses. They've already, they did the little 2.7 CPI print the other month. They've set the stage. They've set the stage for rate cuts. At the same time, geopolitical uncertainty could push other countries to reduce their reliance on the U.S. dollar, prompting increased gold purchases. Lower interest rates are supportive for gold and silver, while reduced energy costs would directly benefit mining companies. So here's one way I might play it, or I mean, I'm pretty much already playing it today. But one way of kind of hedging yourself, either way, you could buy, again, not financial advice, it's just my opinion. You could buy silver mining companies, which are underpriced relative to the price of silver, more so than the price in the gold mining companies are to the physical gold price. Silver mining companies, go long silver mining companies, and then go long oil service companies. A rising oil price will hurt silver mining companies, but will benefit oil service companies. A declining oil price will hurt oil service companies, but help silver mining companies. So there's kind of a hedge there. So if you guys were thinking about ideas on how to hedge this market, that's one way to do so. More pictures. So yeah, now he's wearing blue. Wasn't he wearing? Yeah, he was just wearing a different color. Well, he was wearing a different jacket. Hold on. So he's wearing blue there. He's wearing a jacket here, blue navy pants. Where is he? Same pants. And then, yeah, he's wearing this here. I don't know. So yeah, here are the pictures. So this person says the real reason the U.S. just invaded Venezuela, it's not oil, it's silver. AI Asian guy breaks down what just happened in Venezuela and why silver sits at the center of it all. 48 hours before the Caracas strikes, China quietly locked up 121 million ounces of annual silver supply. Then the U.S. disrupts Venezuela's black market flow from one of the richest mining arcs on earth. Now, COMEX paper versus physical chaos, silver decoupling from gold, industrial buyers scrambling. This isn't a bull market. It's a super cycle driven by green tech, supply choke points, and empire level risk. Gold is a debasement trade. Silver is a scarcity trade. So I think this is what you may have been talking about, Blue Water Stacks. You may have been alluding to this. We'll watch a snippet of this and comment on it.
I need you to stop what you're doing right now. Close the other tabs. Put your phone on.
Don't close
do not
anything.
disturb,
Don't close anything.
and look at the screen.
Don't leave the video.
What you're seeing on the mainstream news tickers, the talk of restoring democracy or counter-narcotics operations in South America, is a carefully constructed smokescreen. It is a narrative designed for the 99% who still believe that geopolitical movements of this magnitude are about ideology. But you are here because you know.
Yeah, ideology is meaningless. Governments don't run on ideology. That's why, like, this whole thing about capitalism versus communism. Don't get me wrong, I'm a capitalist, I'm not a communist. But this whole thing about capitalism versus communism, it's just like red meat for idealists. Governments, elites, the people who run the world don't give a shit about. Oops, I actually swore. They don't care about idealism. They care about pragmatism. Control and power is all that matters. Control and power is the only ideal in the world. There's no true communist country in the world, and insofar as there's no true capitalist country in the world. There's no pure capitalist country. There's no pure communist country. Not even China. Not even Venezuela. China has billionaires. They have private property. like it's not a communist country in like the pure sense of the word. And America isn't a pure capitalist country either. We've got bailouts for the corporate elite, bank bailouts, welfare for the corporations, capitalism for everyone else. So it's not a free market here in the United States, and it's also not a communist market in China and in Venezuela and Cuba either. So like this stuff about ideology, like fighting over like the communists, or the capitalists. That's just not the way the world works.
Know better. You are here because you understand that in the year 2026, every bomb dropped and every regime toppled is a move on a global chessboard of resource securitization. Specifically, what happened on January 3rd, 2026 in Caracas wasn't just a military strike, it was the opening salvo of a global resource war. And the primary target isn't oil, it's silver. Let's look at the ground truth. At 2 a.m. vet on January 3rd, 2026, the capital city of Caracas was rocked by a series of precision airstrikes. This wasn't a warning shot. Residents reported low-flying aircraft and explosions centered on the Fort Tiuna military complex, the nerve center of the Venezuelan Ministry of Defense, and the La Carlota Air Base. This was Operation Southern Spear, a high-risk decapitation strike executed by the Joint Special Operations Command, or JS, via helicopter to the USS Iwo Jima. Why now? Why this level of risk? The answer lies in a fracturing global order where just-in-time supply chains have been replaced by might-is-right resource acquisition. To understand the silver target, you first have to understand the excuse they used to get through the door, the heavy, crude bottleneck. The mainstream media is fixated on the fact that Venezuela sits on the world's largest energy reserves.
Yeah, we just talked about that. We saw we just debunked that in real time just a few moments ago.
But they'll tell you that Venezuelan oil production had already atrophied to roughly 900,000 barrels per day due to years of mismanagement. On paper, the removal of those barrels shouldn't crash the world. But paper isn't reality. The reality is the quality of that crude. Venezuela produces Murray 16, a heavy, sour crude that is absolutely essential for complex refineries in the U.S. Gulf Coast and China's Shandong province. These multi-billion-dollar industrial complexes cannot simply switch to the light, sweet shale oil produced in the Permian Basin.
Yep, that's true.
Without Murray 16, the diesel crack spread widens immediately, threatening the very fuel that moves the global economy. When President Trump asserted that the U.S. is in the oil business and would run Venezuela temporarily, he was signaling a strategic shift toward direct resource securitization. Analysts are calling this the Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine, a modern, aggressive interpretation that basically states, if a resource is vital to U.S. national security and it's being mismanaged by a hostile regime, the U.S. will take it. But
there it is. Might makes right, guys. The law of the jungle. If you want it, take it. That's it. There's no like all this idealism about, oh, they're a communist nation. Oh, they're spreading narcotics into the country. That's all it boils down to. Those are just excuses because they need your consent in the public sphere.
Is where the energy narrative fails and the silver reality begins. Operation Southern Spear didn't happen in a vacuum. It was a kinetic accelerant for a silver market that was already in the throes of a historic supply-side crisis. Just 48 hours before the first bombs fell on Caracas on January 1st, 2026, the People's Republic of China detonated a silent bomb in the global supply chain by implementing aggressive export controls on silver. The confluence of the China shock and the Venezuela shock has fundamentally broken the traditional pricing models for precious metals. For years, silver was the forgotten stepchild of gold. It was traded as a commodity, a secondary asset. But in the opening days of 2026, silver has decoupled from its historic tether to gold. It is now trading as a critical strategic asset essential for both industrial continuity and monetary survival. While the immediate military objectives in Caracas appear to have been achieved with tactical precision, the economic shockwaves are only beginning to be felt. The escalation to this point was calculated. Throughout 2025, the geopolitical temperature rose in a sequence of events that the market chose to ignore. Following the disputed 2024 election.
Yeah, guys, it's no surprise silver started rallying before all this stuff happened. It's part of a larger chain of events that's unfolding and will continue to unfold into 2026.
The return of the Trump administration signaled a departure from diplomatic containment to active encirclement. By November 2025, the deployment of the USS Gerald R. Ford aircraft carrier strike group, accompanied by F-35 stealth fighters to the Caribbean, was publicly justified as a counter-narcotics operation against the Tren de Aragua syndicate. But the market signal was clear. The FAA had issued NOTAMs for Venezuelan airspace, and a naval blockade of oil tankers was ordered, effectively zeroing out exports. The strike on January 3rd was the final piece of the resource denial strategy. By removing the Maduro regime, the U.S. didn't just target oil, they targeted the Arco Minero del Orinoco, a 112,000 square kilometer zone rich in gold, diamonds, coltan, and most importantly, silver. Under the previous regime, this area was a state-sponsored illicit economy where silver and gold were smuggled to Turkey and the UAE to bypass sanctions. The U.S. strike has disrupted these protection networks, creating an immediate supply freeze that has halted the flow of illicit metal to international black markets. When global markets opened on Monday, January 5th, 2026,
Yeah, January 5th, 2026. It's going to be wild. It's actually, well, the market's actually open tomorrow. Overnight markets, that is. I'm curious to see where you guys think gold and silver are going to land, and oil too. Drop me your predictions before tomorrow, January 4th, actually, was when the overnight markets open. So drop me your thoughts either in the chat or in the comments as to where you think gold and silver. Do we go up? Do we go up gold? Do we go up silver? Do we go up oil, or or do we go down any one of these assets? Let me know your predictions.
volatility was unlike anything we've seen in the modern era. Brent crude prices rose to the...
Oh, and I am going to do a live stream tomorrow, God willing, if I'm available. So be on the lookout for that. Hit the bell notification to make sure you don't miss any future live streams as well, guys.
$62 to $65 range, but it was the internal spreads that signaled the real stress. More importantly, silver prices, which had already seen a gamma squeeze in late December due to anticipation of the China ban, surged toward $80 per ounce. You have to understand the psychology of this move. Geopolitical crises often trigger a run on the bank in commodities. When investors see airstrikes on a sovereign nation and the capture of its leadership, they don't look for more paper contracts. They fear counterparty risk. They fear the weaponization of the financial system itself. The Venezuela crisis, following immediately on the heels of the China export ban, has created a double-engine event where industrial demand and monetary demand fire simultaneously. Within Venezuela itself, the collapse of the fiat system has been instantaneous and catastrophic. The Bolívar soberano has hit a terminal velocity collapse. On the black market, the only market that matters for survival right now, the exchange rate gapped to 560 VEs USD within hours of the strike. With the Central Bank of Venezuela ceasing to function, pricing has reverted to pure speculation and barter. This is where the survival valuation of silver becomes a reality. In the streets of Caracas, prices for basic necessities like bread or fuel are being quoted exclusively in USD or grams of silver flakes. This isn't just a Venezuelan problem, it's a blueprint for the empire risk that is now being priced into every major currency. Non-aligned nations, the BRICS Plus bloc, are watching the direct military seizure of a sovereign nation and its resources, and they are coming to one conclusion. If the US can seize Venezuela's wealth and leadership by force, no asset held in dollars is truly safe. This is accelerating a trend that was already...
Yeah, guys, I mean, it is what it is. The world is becoming a dark place, but we can only affect things in our local universe. So, you know, all things being equal, we may as well come out ahead. I mean, as bad as it sounds, with our gold and silver stacks, but because we're gonna, I mean, our friends and families are gonna need us, because they're gonna be confused. They're not gonna. This thing is gonna hit them. They're not gonna know which way is up. But you know, we've been monitoring this, you know, these developments over the years. We've been, you know, looking into the news coming out from a geopolitical lens, how it's impacting the markets. We're heading into a commodities bull market, most likely a monetary metals bull market. And the average person is still looking into crypto and AI tech stocks and all this other stuff, completely clueless. They're in for a rude awakening. And that's really where we've got to step in and make sure we're, you know, I hate to say bail them out, but they're going to need us.
Already in motion, central banks and institutional investors are bypassing fiat entirely for hard assets. As the war premium battles the industrial floor, silver is proving to be more resilient than gold. while gold hit new all-time highs above $4,445 per ounce on the Monday open. Driven by the belief that the U.S. would finance the occupation through massive debt expansion, silver is the asset that the industrial giants are panicking over. If you're a manufacturer of solar panels or electric vehicles, you don't care about the debasement trade. You care about the physical metal that is no longer coming out of China and is now locked behind a military.
Yeah, so just like this post alluded to, gold is a debasement trade, silver is a scarcity trade. It's a scarcity trade because industry needs silver. They all need silver for
blockade in
their
Venezuela.
continuation.
The U.S. intervention is predicated on a transition to a friendly government led by the opposition, with plans for the mass privatization of the mining sector. They want to professionalize extraction and bring in Western majors to dismantle the criminal fiefdoms in the mining arc, but that will take years. In the short term, Venezuelan silver production is effectively offline. This creates a structural deficit that cannot be filled by the remaining global mines, which are already struggling with falling ore grades and a lack of new investment. We are entering a phase of shock reversal and breakout, where the convergence of supply fear from the east and war fear from the south is driving silver to retest its all-time highs. This is not a drill. This is the re-rating of silver as a measure of global instability and industrial necessity. The resource war is no longer a theoretical concept in a white paper. It is a kinetic reality unfolding in the Caribbean. To understand why the resource war has moved from a boardroom theory to a kinetic reality, you have to look at the calendar. While the airstrikes on Fort Tiuna were the visible eruption, the true seismic shift happened 48 hours earlier, on January 1st, 2026. This was the day the People's Republic of China detonated a silent bomb in the global supply chain, and it is the reason why the U.S. military is currently patrolling the streets of Caracas. The China shock was not a military maneuver, but a regulatory decapitation that left the Western industrial complex staring into a void. On the first morning of 2026, the People's Republic of China implemented what analysts are calling a draconian export licensing system for silver. The mechanism, directed by the Ministry of Commerce, or MOFCOM, was designed to act as a geopolitical filter. Under these new rules, only state-approved firms with production...
Yeah, so he's talking about the new licensing requirements coming out of China. And if you watched my interview with Eric Jung and Francis Hunt earlier today, which I heavily recommend you check out, Eric Jung got, he really went into the weeds into all this stuff. And this stuff is never a nothing burger. I mean, we've seen something similar to that before in other sectors in the Chinese economy, and it's never a nothing burger, according to Eric. And Eric's worked in this stuff, for decades. So, yeah, I think we got a super chat here from Blue Water Stacks. Thank you so much for the super chat, Blue Water. I appreciate your viewership. I appreciate your time. I really do. He says, we're definitely pillaging resources. Syria oil too. Yep. Can't argue with that. And yeah, guys, if you want your comment read on air, I will be reading the super chats on air. So let's go ahead and continue.
Capacities exceeding 80 tons and credit lines over $30 million are permitted to export silver. This isn't just a tax or a minor hurdle. It is a soft ban that effectively places a geopolitical gatekeeper between roughly 121 million ounces of annual supply and the global market. You have to realize that China is not just another producer. They are the world's largest refiner of silver and the dominant supplier of the silver paste required for photovoltaic solar panels. By tightening the valve on these exports, Beijing isn't just seeking to raise...
I see some of you guys talking about platinum in the chat. Platinum is interesting. There was a tweet that I read up from Martin Armstrong last night in last night's live stream, and he basically said that the reason platinum is getting a bid is because of fear of potential capital controls coming by way of gold and silver. There's a history of capital controls in gold, obviously the great gold confiscation in the 1930s, but there isn't one for platinum. So that could be a way to kind of circumvent things. Maybe it's a good idea to hedge some of that risk by buying some platinum, is what I would think. And of course, you can get platinum at the Bullion Standard Pro as well. So with your Bullion Standard Pro membership, so there's always that too. So let's go ahead and continue.
Prices. They are executing a strategic move to secure resources for their own massive solar and electric vehicle manufacturing targets, what they call the Green Leap Forward. This was the ultimate retaliation against U.S. semiconductor sanctions. It signaled to the world that silver is no longer just a commodity used for jewelry or investment coins. It has been re-rated as a strategic critical mineral. This is where the China shock and the Venezuela shock converge into a singular explosive market condition. When MOFCOM locked the gates on 121 million ounces of supply, the Western Hemisphere was suddenly forced to look at its own reserves with a sense of desperate urgency. The United States realized that it could no longer rely on a steady flow of refined silver from the East to balance its internal deficits. It had to secure the Western Hemisphere's largest remaining untapped resources by any means necessary. This is the true context of Operation Southern Spear. The capture of Maduro wasn't just about ending a narco state. It was about ensuring that the mineral wealth of the Orinoco mining arc, an area of 112,000 square kilometers, rich in gold, diamonds, and critical silver, remained within the U.S. sphere of influence. The reaction from the Eurasian bloc confirms that Beijing and Moscow saw through the U.S. coin democracy.
Yeah, so this is basically kind of recapping everything we've talked about over the last week or so. So I think that's a good place to stop it for now. But yeah, there is a resource war ongoing. There is a silver price war ongoing. It's spread out into gold, and it's going to spread into other commodities as well. I mean, I'll just pull up the charts here and just show you guys. It's not just gold and silver. It's lithium as well. If I pull up the lithium ETF, LIT, check that bad boy out. Blowing up, breaking out. You look at rare earth metals, REMX, boom. Similar, same pattern, breaking out. Copper, let's pull up copper. That's at all-time highs, breaking out, boom. What else? Nickel, you want to look at nickel? Nickel futures, boom. Check this out. So that's on a monthly candlestick. Boom. Breaking out a nickel. What's another one? You're seeing breakouts in uranium as well. You look at URNM. And that's just one day. Look at that one day green candlestick. So all these charts are breaking out, guys. It's not just gold and silver. This tells me it's much bigger. And gold and silver, I mean, they're a big part of what's going on, but it's not the only thing. So got a few more things to look at here. It's from Martin Armstrong. So it's already come out that Venezuela is mainly about energy. To justify an invasion, there has to be a profit motive. Let's see. Let's watch this clip real quick from Martin Armstrong.
You would think. Do you think that this conflict ends up being far more about energy than about drugs, as Trump says?
Oh, yeah. No, it's more about energy. Look, if it was just drugs, then, okay, fine. You would sink all the ships or anything that comes from there. To invade, there has to be a profit. This is why Putin's not interested in invading Europe. What does he get out of it? Nothing. More expense. All right. In the case of Venezuela, if we invade, what do we get? The largest oil reserves in the world.
Boom. There it is. By the way, I do have Martin Armstrong coming on Monday. So as soon as I record that interview, I will post it. There will be no delay in between recording and posting. So we'll get his latest insights on what's going on in Venezuela. So stay tuned for that. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss the episode. And I think that's it, guys. Yeah, that's pretty much it for today. Also, quick shout out to my other great partners at Capitalist Exploits Insider. Save $1,000 with a special link down below. They're my go-to newsletter that I've used for over 6 years now, since 2020. And basically, they've got a number of different portfolios that they have that you guys have access to. If you're looking to invest into the energy space, you've got to check out their energy stock portfolio. Some of these names you're not going to think of. Some of these sectors you're not going to think of. They really do, find these obscure names and obscure sectors outside of the box thinking as well. You can see how well their portfolio has performed since 2019. If you were to invest $500,000 in November of 2019, you'd be up 1.4 million today. This is relative to the world index, or the world stock market index. So they've outperformed that over the years. They also have a dividend income portfolio that I recommend you guys consider checking into as well. But it's all in the description box down below. Chris McIntosh, Brad McFadden. I've interviewed these guys a number of times. I have Chris coming on this coming week as well. All those great guests. No hype, just straight analysis. These are the guys you want to listen to when it comes to the energy sector. So we've reduced the price down to $14.99. Typically goes for $24.99, but you guys get a special $1,000 off if you use the link in the description box. 4.8 on Trustpilot. All great reviews. And in my case, it's basically paid for itself, multiple folds since I've been a member over the last 6 years. So thanks for watching, guys. Hit that like and subscribe. I really do appreciate it. And we'll see if we do a live stream tomorrow at the market open. Should be interesting. So thanks for watching. Have a good night. Bye.